Today on the Locked On Podcast Network, debut of the Jaguars squad show. The Jags make a big move for a somewhat big name on the wide receiver market. I'll tell you why Jakobi Meyers is the perfect fit for the Big Cats.
That's right. He is. I told Q Myers for Locked On Raiders, I thought we were going to put him on a plane here and come home.
What else do we have coming up, T-Wig?
Yeah, a lot of good stuff with Jakobi Meyers trying to find out his fit. I saw your post today that Liam Coen says, no, the F receiver is a little bit too difficult to learn, so he's going to be outside. And that leads me to a little talk about people thinking that they didn't do Travis Hunter right. They actually had him doing the most difficult thing, and that's the reason why you do that. You have super individuals like that, you put the most on them, and I like the fact that Liam mentioned that today.
What's going on, everybody?
There he is.
Marques, what do we have coming up on the squad show today?
We'll talk about running the football, Jab from last week and what they did, how they did against the Raiders. I really like where they're headed. They're being much more assertive in the ground attack, which is huge. And again, like I tell everybody, as a former offensive lineman, when you run the football and you establish that clock and you control the football, great things happen and you get the W, which is exactly what they did.
Duval. It's the Jaguars squad. Everything Jacksonville Jaguars every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Sunshine State. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Gear up. The Jaguars squad show starts now.
We are excited to be bringing you this little podcast at least twice a week here on the Locked On Podcast Network and the Locked On Jaguars YouTube channel. Mia O'Brien, Tony Wiggins, Marques Ogden. We're going to be joining you, especially every Wednesday, to recap the Jaguars game that was on Sunday and look ahead to their upcoming matchup. But first, as we get going in this first episode ever of the Jaguars Squad Show, I want to say thanks to our friends, not only at the Locked On Podcast Network, but today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. We begin with the Jaguars' lone move made before the trade deadline at 4 p.m. on Tuesday as they acquired Jakobi Meyers for a third-round pick not a third-round pick, a fourth-round pick and a sixth-round pick. Reportedly, a third-round pick, Tony and Marques, was what the asking price was from the Las Vegas Raiders. Ultimately, both James Gladstone as well as the crew out in the Pacific Northwest with the Seattle Seahawks in their trade for Rashid Shaheed, who was reportedly also being shopped by the Saints for a third-round pick, able to bring that price down to a fourth and a sweetener. T-Wig, you kick us off. Initial impressions, because as we both agreed, this was the move the Jaguars needed to make. But why is Jakobi Meyers such a great fit for Liam Coen's offense?
Because he's multifaceted. The one thing that I really loved about him was he catches the ball in traffic. And that has been a little bit of a problem with these guys. I don't know if it's because they just got the yips or if it's a little bit of lost confidence or whether it's because of the physicality. And I'm not going to sit here and start blaming it on hospital balls like a lot of people, because they're professionals and they're gladiators for a reason. These guys have been hitting each other all their careers. And I don't think somebody just woke up one day and all of a sudden they become afraid of contact. But the thing that I like about him is how he catches the ball with late hands, takes it, tucks it, and he turns and gets right up the field. And I just saw a text today. I think you posted this, and somebody posted it, that Mac Jones apparently texted Trevor and told him that Jakobi Meyers is one of the best players he's ever played against. And I heard one of the GOATs, Devontae Adams, say the same thing, that he is absolutely overrated. There's something to be said about a professional pass catcher. Remember, Keenan McCardell was that. He didn't have a lot of opportunity to show it before he got here. Guys like Joe Horn. And you think about the number of players that were okay players, but they were professional pass catchers. And then when they got into another system, they were able to really, really thrive. And even before Travis Hunter got hurt, the Jaguars needed this. It's always an upgrade of talent. It's always looking forward. And now that Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. are a little bit down, it couldn't come at a better time for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Marques, I see you nodding your head in agreement. Why was this the perfect match for the Jacksonville Jaguars?
The Jaguars needed some veteran leadership at the position, plain and simple. And when you have a guy that, like Tony said, can catch the football in traffic, doesn't dance when he gets it, catches, turns upfield, and goes for yards after catch, that yak, which is a huge category for receivers. Because if you can get that yak up, that means that the quarterback can then continue to throw you the ball because he knows you're going to what? Get yards and not dance around, not try to do too much cutting and all this stuff, which can what? You can fumble the football. I've seen so many games this year, receivers like trying to dance and cut all the stuff, make hits, they fumble, all this stuff. So when you have a guy, and Jakobi Meyers is going to catch the football, turn up the field, and get aggressive, that's what it's all about. And so when I played at Jacksonville, you know, I got to watch guys like Jimmy Smith and some other legends. We did have some really good guys that were like, for example, kind of reminds me again of a Cortez Hankton kind of guy who was in that spot, would catch the football, make plays. Cortez came in with me to Jacksonville in 2003 out of Texas Southern. We actually played against each other our senior year when I was at Howard. He was at TSU. And to see, it just kind of reminds me of that kind of guy, right, Tony? Catch the football, get upfield, control the football, tuck the football, and don't lose the football. Like, that's what the Jaguars need. A guy in that position, veteran leadership, that's not going to turn the ball over and teach the young guys how to do their job, get upfield, get yards, and then go down and go to the next play.
Yep.
And the irony, of course, Tony, is that Cortez Hankton was the coach, the position coach of none other than Brian Thomas Jr. during his time at LSU. And so that's where I want to pivot this conversation about where is Jakobi Meyers going to play, knowing that the Jaguars wide receiver room, as Liam Coen called it this morning, is thin. Brian Thomas Jr. nursing that ankle injury, De'Ami Brown in the concussion protocol, Travis Hunter on IR. And so and Tim Patrick, not to mention, missed Sunday's game because of a groin injury. And so what we've been told is that Jakobi Meyers will start at the X or Z positions just because those outside wide receiver spots are a little bit easier to learn in Liam Cohen's offense. The F is kind of the inflection point, that slot position, a lot of motion, a lot of calls that maybe it's a little bit tougher of an onboarding process on a short week like Jakobi Meyers currently faces. But if and when this operation is healthy, who is he taking snaps away from, Wigg, that you feel is still going to be an instrumental part of this offense? And maybe that's where this may not be the ideal marriage that we're seeing it to be.
Yeah, I think the person, if I'm really thinking about it, the person that it probably hurts, and it almost seems unselfish to think about it as hurting a player because, look, everybody's in this for the same reason, but this is the only way you're going to lift this thing is with friction. This is old science. First, you need friction, right? And then you need combustion, and then you need propulsion. You can't take off without friction. And friction is guys fighting for every single snap. To me, it's De'Ami Brown. And the reason why I say that, even though he's banged up, even if he was healthy, you now have three receivers, that are here on half-year deals now. Jakobi, De'Ami, who was here on what I call a Dante Moncrief contract, 1 year, 10 years. I'll never forget the Jaguars did that. And the other one is Parker Washington, who is, coming off in the last year of his rookie deal. Parker's versatile. Parker also returns kicks. Therefore, his worth and his value to this team is high. If Jakobi comes in here and he's the player that we all believe he is, I believe then in order for them to have continuity, when you think of BT, we're going to assume that BT is going to get back to being who he is, along with Travis Hunter, who is the future of this team in a lot of different ways. And then you have Mr. Versatile and Parker Washington. I believe if you have to pick who the money goes to, it's going to come down to those two players. And if Jakobi is who I think he is, then that means it's going to be Jakobi, since they gave up the equivalent of a third-round pick for him and they signed De'Ami for free.
Marcus, what say you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. People forget how much of a business the NFL is. And so it's like you said, Travis Hunter is the future. Great player. We're not even going to get there. Like, this amazing player. Young talent, can do it all. He picks up things so fast, and he's a student of the game. Love the young man. When you talk about BT, great player. But again, you're talking about Dominic Brown, those guys that weren't really quote unquote, they don't have a lot invested in them. When you start looking at like investments, like draft picks, right? The Jaguars gave up, like it's like Tony said, the equivalent of a third-round draft pick to get him here. Jakobi's here because of that. They're going to give him more opportunities. If he is even in the same situation, I think he's going to be actually better, in my opinion. You always want to lock up those players that you have more invested in, because you have more money in them, and you want to show your fans and your front office that you know how to draft and bring the talent in. So it really comes down to, it's all about people. It's a business, and people just forget that. Like, I know you love the game. I love fans because fans make the game great. But football is a business with shoulder pads and helmets every day, all day. It's about the money. It's about the investment. It's about the long-term future of who you have your money in now. You want to pay them more later on. So if Jakobi Meyers has a great show, which I think he will, and as you said, right, Tony, it's they need him. They have vacancies. He can fill the vacancies, do what you're supposed to do. You get a good payday.
That's right.
So tell me this, gentlemen. Jakobi Meyers traded to the Jaguars for a 4th and a 6th round pick. His 2026 contract year, I think, has been a little misreported, because I know I myself was a little confused, because when the rumors started swirling last week that the Jaguars could be interested in his services, and of course Meyers had asked for a trade multiple times from the Las Vegas front office, I was under the impression that his contract expired after this year. And then there was this notion over the last 24 hours, Wigg, that perhaps 2026 he would still be under contract. To be clear, that's a void year in his contract. Right. This is a 9-game rental for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so to Marcus's point of your draft picks that are invested, the money and dollars and cents you pay someone, that represents their playing time and their value to your larger idea and picture of where the organization should be headed. Yes, clearly they have invested heavily. Did they invest too much, giving up a 4th and a 6th round pick for a 9-game rental potentially?
I don't think they did. And the reason why is because, and this is where it goes back to track record. Track record so far with them on day 3, look what they've done. You know what I'm saying? Rayon Lane is a serious, it reminds me of the Slater dude that played up in New England. Every time they punt the ball and somebody makes a fast tackle, oh, I already know it's number 25. You know it. And that stuff is absolutely invaluable to a team that they can count on a guy like that. You look at Bashal Tootin, 3rd day pick. You look at the blocking, you know, the blocking back. They called him the block back. I saw him at fullback. I've seen him return kicks, and I've seen number 36 doing all of this stuff. They can get production and identify guys that everyone might not value. And this is something that Jimmy Johnson did when he first took over the Cowboys. When everybody had 250-pound linebackers, he went to the University of Miami and got all these 225, 230-pound linebackers that nobody wanted because they were good for him. And I think a lot of times there's this universal look at talent of who is talented and look at the names on list and the top 100 list, but you're not paying attention to who fits you, who fits your culture, who fits the need that you have. I think James Gladstone has been able to do that. That's why I don't make too much of a big deal about not having a 2026 first rounder because they went out and got Travis Hunter. Because I think the track record of where he comes from with the Rams, say Puka Nacua, right? You know what I'm saying? Guys like that, they can find people that they know. They feel like they evaluate well enough that they can get players later on. I don't mind them trading that pick, and I don't mind them if they pay good money to keep him next year for these 2 reasons. Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter, they're 2 lead dogs at wide receiver. They're on rookie contracts. This is when you got to go out and spend more money. Just look at it like this. How much money are we going to designate to a room? They don't have a $20 million wide receiver. So you know what they can do? They can get them a $12, $13 million wide receiver while they have those 2 rookies. And that's the way you have to work it. You have to work it economically. You have to also be judicious, but at the same time, you got to get guys that can play and that can do the things you need them to do in order to elevate this franchise.
Should be noted, at least per my reporting, T-Wig, $20 million is what Jakobi Meyers and his camp would be targeting per year when he does become a free agent this offseason. So just file that one away, Marcus. But I want to wrap this initial impressions of Jakobi Meyers, who did meet with the media for the first time as a member of the Jaguars today. All positives, all smiles. Said he wasn't, looking for the big payday, and that's why he's trying to get out. He just wants to win football games. Wasn't winning football games out there in Las Vegas. Excited to be an integral part of an offensive operation here. But Marcus, as the former player here on this squad show, tell us this. He has 4 or 5 days, depending on how you want to dice it, because he landed in Jacksonville late last night. how much can you really, if you're Liam Coen, how much can you really incorporate him into the game plan for Sunday's game against the Houston Texans?
So, because he's a veteran, and again, he's going to go to a position on the outside of the field, not inside, where you have a lot of motion and change of direction and things of that nature. It's going to be easier. Will it be easy? No, of course not. And here's the thing: it just depends whose style of offense were they running in with the Raiders. Is it similar to Jacksonville? Because here's the thing: this is where, again, right, Tony, right, Mia, the OCs that you work with, that's key, because most of the time the head coach kind of lets the OCs make the call. So if he's used to that type of offense from his prior teams, much easier transition to come on in and be part of the Jaguars and make a big impact early. If the offense he was running with the Raiders is nothing like it, not compatible, not in the same atmosphere, it will be very, very difficult for him to come and make a huge impact early. So it really depends upon how much he can come in and learn quickly. But again, right, Tony, right, Mia? How much was the offense that he was running with the Raiders similar to what the Jaguars run? And so it gets where, and again, if you're a guy like a veteran, you work with other players throughout the season, do other plays, other stuff in the off season, practicing on the field, all that. You all might conversate about that stuff and kind of have dialogue about it, just so you know, because you could get traded anytime. At the football, again, it's a business. And again, I love what you said, Tony, about, giving up a first rounder for Travis Hunter. Sometimes, right, in life, you got to go for it. You got to be bold. Fortune favors the bold, right? Look at the Jaguars. Like they are, I mean, first of all, who thought the Colts were going to do this? Look what the Jaguars are doing. They've changed the culture by getting some young talent in there that's going to work hard, that's going to follow the suit. It's a new coach. Liam was smart. He said, hey, I'm going to double down on – everybody knew that Cam Ward was going to go to the Titans. Everybody knew that. He said, I'm going to double down and get the best player in the draft, and that's what Ozzie Newsome always did. Ozzie with the Raiders would draft the best player on the board. It was for the fans. It was for the team. And again, that's the thing. You have to sometimes take some risk in football to make big. So I'm really excited about that.
Hang on that thought about the Colts, Marcus. We have to take our first break. Want to shout out everyone who's listening live here on the Locked On Jaguars Network. Thank you to Vincent. What a crossover. I had no idea this was happening. Surprise! And we're going to be with you each and every Wednesday at 4 o'clock and a little post-game action as well, Sundays, Mondays. We're going to give you all the info about that. But first, let's have a word from our friends over at the Locked On Podcast Network. Hey guys, want to tell you about our friends at FanDuel. Let's hear a little bit from our friends at FanDuel. Do we have them? There they are. That's right. Let's hear from our friends at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at bigger payout. And keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Jaguars Squad Show, the first iteration, and we appreciate everybody who's hanging out with us live, and we appreciate everyone who's getting in on the conversation. Thanks to Paladin8527, Mia and the Barbershop. Let's go. Appreciate this is Long John Silver. We should keep BTJ outside the hash. Let him be our Moss. A whole lot to discuss as the Jaguars return from Las Vegas, get ready to face the Houston Texans on Sunday. But we want to keep with that trade deadline conversation. Marcus, you brought it up, so let's go right back to you. The Indianapolis Colts make a massive splash, giving up 2 first-round picks and A.D. Mitchell to acquire the services of Sauce Gardner, the former first-round pick former number 4 overall pick from the New York Jets. Are you a little worried about how active some of the other teams in the AFC were comparatively to the Jaguars just making that lone trade for Jakobi Meyers?
Am I surprised? No. Am I concerned? Always, because what the Colts did, they went out and again, they got a really great player. They upgraded. And again, this is where in football you have to look at and you have to measure the landscape. You can get a guy right now who can contribute at a high level, that's respected, that teams fear, and it's going to add a big boost to your roster. Compared to a draft pick that you're going to get, you don't know where you're going to fall in the draft. You don't have any idea who you draft. It's always, quote unquote, a gamble to draft a young man and have him come in and be part of your team. It's always a gamble. So you can get a sure player like a Sauce Gardner coming in. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. The Jets already know that they're done for this. Like they're done. Like they're prepping for next year. So the Colts are again making moves. It's a business. People are going to always want the edge. They're going to always want to take the opportunity to get better and add some great players to their roster and beef up, especially heading into what? The back half of the season.
T-Wig, do you think the Jaguars made enough moves at the deadline comparatively to some of their other AFC opponents?
I do, and this will anger some people. The Jaguars are in their first year, and I know we want to keep the pedal to the metal and push it to the floor and be all gas and no brakes. You don't have to do this like it's a one-year fantasy team. This is a dynasty team, okay? That's the way you have to look at it if you're building. You don't have to change everything in one day. And in order for you to get something really, really good, you got to give up something really, really good. And for people that think that the equivalent of a third-round pick for a guy like Jakobi Meyers is a lot, oh, you wait until you hear what it'll cost you to go get Trey Hendrickson or Quentin Williams. And it's just not feasible to be able to do that and without giving up something. I mentioned I did a podcast the other night down at Strings, and they said, what would you do if you really wanted a player? I said, I'd trade Josh Hines-Allen. It's not the first time in 3 years I've said that, and Josh knows it. He teased me a little bit about it. But the thing is I'm like, in order for you to get something valuable, you got to give up something valuable. You're not going to just fleece a team out of their high-value players or their high-value picks. It just doesn't happen. So I think there's a little bit of standing in and believing in the guys that you have without mortgaging your future. Also, not realizing that you don't have to fix it. It's not Super Bowl or bust. They're not going to get fired if they don't make the Super Bowl or make a deep run into the playoffs this year. You have to keep your eye on the big picture while also pressing towards the mark with the little picture and doing everything you can today. I don't think giving up a 4th and a 6th is going to necessarily hurt them because they can get that back easily. And it's what they got. They probably got it from somebody else anyway in another deal. Okay, what they gave up. But you have to be very, very measured and be very deliberate and realize you don't have to get it all at once.
Well, especially when the Jaguars have an additional 4th-round pick via, oh boy, she's going to give Trent Baalke credit, via the Cam Robinson trade, thanks to his playing time. And so they already have another 4th-round pick. As we know, they have 3 third-round picks, which those are being kept very, very tight to the chest because I'm sure James Gladstone is thinking, to your point, Tony, he is thinking long-term. He is thinking, how can I work my way potentially back into the back half of the first round? But we'll get to that when we get to that because they are focused as well on the here and now, which is why the trade for Jakobi Meyers was necessary. But at the same time, boys, that interior of the defensive line, not exactly what you are hoping for in the pass rush department. Devon Hamilton has been better the last few weeks in terms of run defense. He's been pretty much top 15 across most PFF metrics when it comes to defending the run. He had the play of the game against the Raiders on Sunday and batting down that pass that sealed the victory for the Jaguars in OT. But ultimately, Marcus, that's where my concern is. I thought the Jaguars would be able to make another move in addition to the one for Meyers to shore up that interior of the defensive line, quite frankly, so that Tony doesn't have to worry about Josh Hines-Allen and shipping him out of town because now he's got somebody creating push from the interior, and that's helping him out on the edge. They don't have that guy right now. Correct me if I'm wrong, Marcus.
No, you're not wrong. And I'm going to tell you like this. Finding that guy is not easy. finding those guys that can really stop the run and could be active pass rushers in the middle, it is a very, very fine art. So the Jaguars, I did not expect them to gain somebody of a real high caliber at the interior D-line position. And again, what did Tony just say? What did the Cowboys have to give up to get Quentin Williams? How much did they have to give up? Like so much. Again, and Tony said it best. Teams aren't going to give up a really good player for nothing. These guys are professionals. They know how to analyze, look at things, and assess things. So at the end of the day, finding a really good D tackle that can stop when it can get after the pass rusher, after the quarterback, is not easy. So if I'm the Jaguars right now, that is my concern, is the line play, trying to beef it up any way they can through either just working different systems, working different schemes, whatever they can do. Because again, that's where the game's always won. Tony knows this, me, I'm sure you do too. The game is won at the O-line and the D-line. You want to make a run and go after and win the Super Bowl, you have got to run the football, control the clock. You have to get off the pass blockers and get in front of the quarterback with your pass rush. So the Jaguars need to kind of be able to do some different schemes, different blitzes, different packages, and they have to work with what they have, and that's exactly what they have to do.
Couple notes from that, Marcus. Great points. Quentin Williams, according to Jordan Schultz, the Jaguars were in the running for him, as Vincent points out here in the YouTube chat. Glad we didn't pull the trigger, though, because the price was way too high for where the Jaguars, as Tony noted, are as a team right now. Christine brings up a good point, though, Tony. What are the thoughts on not addressing the interior, even in free agency? And now the Jaguars had a safety in for a workout today, and Greg Odom. It'll be curious to see, not Greg Odom. So don't worry, basketball fans. I want to throw you for a loop there. I realize pronunciation. But this idea of Christian Wilkins has been a street free agent, the former first-round pick by way of Clemson. Reportedly pretty close to QB1 here in Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence, at least during their college days. And so do you believe, Tony, that the Jaguars will now look to the street? They'll try to find a free agent, because to Marcus's point, if this game is won in the trenches and the Jaguars need to shore up that interior and find someone who can generate a push to help the two edge rushers, let alone the edge rushers behind them on the depth chart, they got to find that production somewhere outside, unless it's like what Marcus said, it just comes down to scheming it up with who they have already.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me just put it like this, and this is not a bash Trent Baalke, statement, but I will say this: they did draft Mason Smith in the second round, and there was hope that he could be what they want. There were a lot of fans that wanted Eric Armstead to not be a big end, even though he did a little bit of that in San Francisco. They wanted him back inside, right? I get it. The thing is he's been okay. He's been decent inside. He makes a lot of money. You can't address everything all at once. And that's the point that I'm trying to make. And I think sometimes people confuse this. They see DT and think all defensive tackles are the same. No, a nose tackle, a 0 and a 1 is different from a 3 technique. It's just that's like saying OL, offensive lineman. Oh, okay. So you think they need to go out and get a center? You think they need a right? They're not the same. You just heard them talking about where they're going to play Jakobi Meyers. All wide receivers are not the same. There's an X and a Z. There's a flanker, a split, and a slot. They're there for a reason. CB, the cornerbacks, everybody can't play nickel. It's just the way it is. So everybody wants Devon Hamilton moved out. Okay, so you end up with 2-3 techniques. You know what's going to happen? They're going to go heavy and they're going to run the ball right down your throat, and they're going to limit possessions. And then you put the nose tackle back in and then put another nose tackle next to him, they're going to throw it. 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to run a bunch of screen plays and run stuff outside because they know those dudes can't get over there, especially in an even front. So I think sometimes you have to specifically know what positions mean and who guys are and what their responsibilities are, and understand that interior pass rushers are very, very valuable and cost a whole bunch. Not everybody's Aaron Donald where you can play in an odd or even front. Not everybody's Chris Jones where you can play 3 technique and defensive end. Not everybody's Jalen Carter, who is the definition of a 3 technique, who played nose guard in their defense last year and won a Super Bowl. Those are great players. I don't know who they're talking about that you can go get. Everybody keeps mentioning Christian Wilkins. I'll touch that real quick. Everybody knows how good he might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's 32 teams and nobody, you don't have to trade anything for him. Why do you think that's what it is? You think it's because you went and tapped somebody on the head with a kiss or whatever in the locker room? No, it's more to it. And if it wasn't because of the value that those guys, remember, Miami let him go into free agency, didn't try to tag him, drafted him in the first round and let him walk. There's more to it. And I think these guys, you got to give them more credit for knowing exactly what they're doing. It's not computer. It's not fantasy football. It's real. There are people behind this stuff. And the reason why it hasn't happened, I don't know, but it hasn't happened. So I know there's a reason.
Go ahead, Marcus.
No, I was going to say, you're looking at a situation where a player does not fit the culture of the organization or the team, period. That's what it is. Because if he did, somebody pick him up, the talent is there to some degree. Of course, he may not be as high as what they thought he was coming into the NFL, but he still has enough to get it done and be serviceable. But here's the thing. If you're a team, you don't want to bring in someone that doesn't fit the culture. You don't want to do that because you risk what? People, your players not gelling with him, not liking him. And what happens then? It messes up your what? Your chemistry. Football is as much about camaraderie and chemistry as you can imagine. That's what it's all about. Between playing with each other, having each other's back, practice, all this stuff, it's going to really be huge. So at the end of the day, like I tell people, if a player's not been picked up yet, there's something around chemistry, them fitting the culture, and you have to look at the signs. That's going to tell you what it's all about all day long.
And as you both noted, if 2 of those 32 teams have deemed Christian Wilkins not fit for their culture, 1's an anomaly. 2, maybe we are approaching a trend. I do expect the Jaguars, especially by the move they made today, to at least bring somebody in for a workout. I think that they're going to explore some names on the open market as street free agents. But at the same time, Rome was not built in a day. And so perhaps it will take a little bit longer to build the Great Wall of Duval on the defensive side of the ball. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Our first ever Jaguar squad show. Thanks to always the Jags 904. What a dang lineup. Yes, we'll be here Wednesdays at 4:00. We'll have more information about our post-game shows that we're going to be cranking out as well on Sundays and Mondays. We look ahead to not only the Jaguars game against the Texans, but how well they ran the ball against the Raiders, and can that translate moving forward? That's coming up next here on the Jaguar Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network. But first, I want to tell you about our friends at BILT. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where BILT comes in. BILT is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through BILT, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But BILT isn't just about rent, folks. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. I love with BILT, your rent finally works for you. You're earning points every month on something you already have to pay. We use BILT in my house, and trust me, it's going to help fund our honeymoon. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. Make sure to use that link so they know that we over at Locked On Podcast Network sent you over there. Welcome back to the Locked On Jaguars Squad Show. Appreciate everybody interacting with the show, especially as Marques Ogden. The floor is yours. Excited to hear your take as well as Tony Wiggins' take. But Marques, I know you were fired up by the Jaguars' second most rushing yards on the season, 151 yards on the Raiders defense. What worked well, 30,000-foot view for this offense that allowed for them to absolutely run crazy out in Las Vegas on Sunday?
They just kept being consistent. And that's the key to a running game. When you're passing the football, it's great because they have big plays and all that. It's awesome, but it's so much pressure on your offensive line, especially your tackles. How do you negate the pressure? You keep the defensive linemen from putting their feet back, getting their hands up in the air, ready to just blow off like a rocket and going after the football, to the quarterback. You gotta keep consistent. And Tony said it best. Find the weak points in the defensive lines. If I'm running the ball interior-wise, I'm going after more of the 3 technique because that is usually a lighter, quicker defensive line on the interior, which means what? They don't have the beef to do what? Stop the run. If I'm going to run the football, I want to go more at the left tackle and behind him because the other end, the right end, is usually what? Lighter, quicker, not as good off the ball to stop the run. And that's what you have to do. And the Jaguars just kept after it. Etne reminds me a lot of Fred Taylor. Fred Taylor was one of my favorite to play with. He could run inside, he could run outside, he had breakaway speed, and again, he just always knew how to what? Continue to move and keep things going forward. So the Jaguars did a phenomenal job of being consistent. The running game is not designed to win in the first quarter, second quarter. I mean, you might get some big plays here or there. It's designed to wear the defensive line out. As Tony said, you have those defensive linemen running side to side, getting tired, chasing things, trying to find the ball carrier. And what happens in the third and fourth quarter? They get winded. They get tired. They lose that little bit of oomph, trying to get off the ball. Like they kind of say, and they don't try to shed. That's like what? They're tired. And so that's what you have to do. If you just keep at it and keep consistent and have a good mix of downhill, outside edge, some trap plays, pulling people, misdirection, those plays are going to eventually make into big, big runs. And that's exactly what they did against the Raiders. That was a big part of the W on Sunday.
Travis Etienne, certainly the headliner, Tony, coming out of this game. He finished with a season-high 22 carries for 84 yards. But I want to throw this stat at you because I know everything goes back to those trenches, that offensive line. Travis Etienne, according to Next Gen Stats, forced a season-high 9 missed tackles on those 22 rush attempts, generating 43 yards after those missed tackles. So to be clear, of the 84 total yards he had on the ground, 43 were after contact. What say you to that stat, Tony Wiggins?
I love it. At least that contact isn't coming behind the line of scrimmage. It's coming where he can actually hit the hole and get a good lean. And those half yards that they get when your body's leaning forward, that usually leads to first downs on third down. And how many times have we seen teams come up that much short? But I'm going to let y'all behind the veil a little bit. Years ago, I did a radio show with Tony Baselli. Frank Frangie, my friend, was on vacation and Tony was there. And I asked him what his favorite part of the game was. He said in the fourth quarter, when you have the lead and you're running it and you just tell them, come on. And you can see the dudes tapping out. It's almost like a scene from Boys in the Hood when Trey told Doughboy, let me out, Doe. You can see the defensive lineman like, no, man, I don't want to do this. They're huffing and puffing and waving themselves out because that's when that smoke is coming. And if you watch college football, how many times have y'all seen Georgia or Alabama, sorry, Gator fans, running all over your favorite team in the fourth quarter? There was absolutely nothing you could do about it. Well, when you flip that around and the team that's doing it for you is doing it to somebody else, there is nothing like watching your team get 5 yards of carry and they know they can't do anything about it. I love the fact that in overtime, it's almost like they had Jack Nicholson from A Few Good Men. That's my second movie reference. It's almost like they said, get us home. They came out in overtime and ran the ball right up into the face mask of the Raiders. And I love the fact that team was carried in overtime by bully ball, because I think that sent a message to the team, like, we believe in you. And it also let those wide receivers know that keep jumping too early and moving around. Don't do nothing. Just stand there. You don't give us any penalties. Let's just go and run behind our line. And it goes back to something that Liam Coen said when he got this job. He said, I want to break the huddle and I want them to know we're coming. And they can't do anything about it. And that's exactly what happened. It manifested itself the other day, and I couldn't have been happier for that group. And the weakness of the offensive line is walk a little pass blocking. You ain't got to worry about that weakness if you get off the ball and knock somebody out and just keep pushing it down their throat. So I think the offensive line, Marques, you'll appreciate this. I think one guy on the offensive line can make the entire offensive line look bad, but it's real difficult to do that in a running game when everybody's big and strong and they're all playing on one accord. It is a thing of beauty when you get it going, and they got it going the other day in overtime.
Here's the thing. People don't understand how hard it is to backpedal faster than someone's running forward at you. I know it's your job, and I understand that, and you are paid a lot of money to do that. But there's not a lot of Tony Baselli's, Jonathan Ogden's, Anthony Munoz's running around out there. Mm-mm. And so here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. If you're a Jaguar fan, and you should be watching this awesome show, understand this. The Jaguars beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't care how they did it. They beat them, right? And here's the thing. When you beat the best in this game, that gives you the confidence that you can beat anybody. All Jacksonville has to do is take it one game at a time, control the clock, win the turnover battle. I love that stat, me, about yards after contact. Because again, that means what? They're not going down on what? First contact, first impact. And that means what? Their legs are still churning and burning towards that first down, that end zone. And if a team does that and their defense just stays a little bit more consistent and finally get after the pass, get that pass rush up just a little bit, the Jaguars can do something special this year. This year. They don't have to wait till next year. They've got what it takes. You just got to win at the line of scrimmage and keep after it, and don't take your foot off the gas when you know it's time to do your job. As Liam Coen said, we're coming. Stop us. I dare you. You can't do it. Didn't think so. Here we come again.
Well, especially Marcus and Tony, when that is what Liam Coen said the identity of this team would be. So many thought when Liam Coen came to town, they're going to be pass happy. It's going to be a passing first offense. No. And Tony Baselli has said that. And Tony, you know it. In the first interview that they did with Liam Coen, I think even Baselli would tell you, he went into it maybe with a preconceived notion of what Liam Coen would try to sell him on. He would try to sell him on this idea of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and then Cade Otton and Bucky Irving working in perfect harmony in Tampa Town in his lone year as the OC there. But the reality was Liam Coen, a former college quarterback, walks in and says, I want to run the crap out of the ball. And that is what they did on 8 of their 9 offensive plays in that overtime victory over the Las Vegas Raiders. And by the way, Tony, I don't want to say it, but Walker Little, top 10 PFF rushing of any left tackle in the
See, you got to play to your strengths, man. That's what I'm talking about. I love passing the ball too, but Liam is a former quarterback, and he can tell you better than me. I think the greatest friend. People think the tight end sitting out in the flat is the greatest friend to a quarterback. It's a running game, because like Marques just said, those guys get tired. You think a pass rusher can rush the ball? You think he can rush the quarterback when he's sitting back there tired because you've just been banging him up? And he's going to take a little bit. He's going to take a little bit longer on that get off because he thinks you're still running. And that's when play action starts to work, and those bootlegs. You can see those dudes getting tired every single time. So running the ball is paramount, in my opinion.
Let's take one more break. When we come back, we're going to look ahead to the Jaguars' Week 10 showdown with the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud not at practice in H-Town on Wednesday. What does that mean for a Davis Mills-led Houston offense? We discuss next here on the Locked On Podcast Network and the Locked On Jaguars channel. Welcome back to the Jaguar Squad Show on the Locked On Jaguars channel. If you haven't dropped a subscription, maybe you want to press that little subscribe button. We are going to be here each and every Wednesday for our midweek squad show. Marques Ogden, Tony Wiggins, Mia O'Brien, and of course, we'll also have post-game for you either Sunday, immediately following the final whistle, or on Mondays. That schedule is going to be rolled out here in the next few weeks. And so keep it locked here on Locked On. And we appreciate you guys subscribing here on YouTube, if those of you are watching live, or wherever you get your podcasts. The Jaguars have their second AFC South tilt of the season coming up on Sunday, T-Wig. They head out to Houston to face a potentially CJ Stroud-less Houston Texans team. I want to go big picture with both you and Marcus. I want to say this. Who or what is your biggest concern for the Jaguars in this matchup before we dive into the nitty-gritty of who could be available for both sides?
I'll go. My biggest concern is, backup quarterbacks are backups for a reason. But when they play real well, that first game. Jake Browning comes to mind. The Bengals have struck. The Bengals beat the Jaguars twice with Jake Browning, right? And then you see Joe Flacco when he came off the pine in Cleveland, and when he came off the pine. That first game is always, you're like, well, why wasn't that dude starting? I'll give you another one. About a month or so ago on Thursday night, the Rams played the 49ers, and Mac Jones, I picked the Rams, had them all in my parlay, and guess what happened? They got beaten. Mac Jones, people were talking about, well, maybe the 49ers should have took him anyway. And that's the thing about a backup quarterback. He's one of the smartest dudes on the team, and he's eager to show, and there isn't a lot of tape on him. So we got to be real, real careful with the next 2 weeks. And we're talking about this Houston game, but Davis Mills, he's been there a long time. It ain't like he's a young kid. No, he's a seasoned veteran who's just not good enough to be the starter, but it's the Toby Keith thing. I may not be as good as I once was, but I can be as good once as I ever was or was thought to be, and that's what he can do. Don't go into this game sitting there thinking it's going to be easy because it's a backup. Even though he's playing behind a bad offensive line, no, that dude, he's smart. He'll dial it up, and you can't take it. You got to act like the starter is still in there, because if you don't, you'll get beat.
T-Wig's number one concern is the backup quarterback. Vincent in the chat says Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker got to show up in a big way. Marques Ogden, what say you? What is your biggest concern heading into this into this division matchup on Sunday?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the quarterback. I mean, Mills has not been hit like C.J. Stroud. He has not had the damage done to him like C.J. Stroud. He's fresh. So anytime you have a backup quarterback that's seasoned, that's savvy, that's fresh, and wants to prove something, especially against a division rival, they're going to always bring their best. And they're right. Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, all those guys have to show up, and they've got to do big things. Because, again, how do you mess up a quarterback? Get him off rhythm. Make him step to the left. Make him step to the right, make him have to look behind him, look to his left. He keeps his eyes looking to his peripheral, not downfield, because he's worried about getting hit or getting his butt knocked off. So again, the quarterback definitely, because again, like I said, Stroud's banged up. And Stroud's been talked about how he hasn't really been having a great season with his health, his training, all this stuff. So again, this is the time for Mills to say, you know what? Here I am, coach, put me in. Like, we're not doing that great. Let me get a chance. So I'm concerned about that for sure with the quarterback position.
And here in the last hour, D'Amico Ryans did meet with Texans reporters as we're coming at you live here on a Wednesday afternoon, and did say that Davis Mills definitively will be the starter for Houston on Sunday. C.J. Stroud will not play. I appreciated this line from Davis Mills to Cody Stutes of Houston Texans at Houston Football on YouTube. It was definitely motivating for Mills, the former Stanford quarterback, now longtime backup in Houston. Definitely motivating when 2 years ago, the Texans went with Case Keenum when C.J. Stroud went down with a concussion. Mills said that it led to some self-assessment, but he's ready to showcase what he's confident about in his game. So, yeah, he's got this one circled, folks. I agree with both Tony and Marcus that, yeah, this is a revenge game, not just for the entire Houston Texans operation after losing in Duval week 3 of the 2025 season, but especially for Davis Mills as he looks to get his name back out there and prove that he is capable of taking snaps in the National Football League. Among the players who weren't at practice in Houston today, Ka'imi Fairbairn, the longtime kicker for the Houston Texans, who's also been a thorn in Jacksonville's side the last few years. He has a quad injury. He will not play. Tony, I see you shaking your head. Did you see who the backup quarterback is in Houston? Or backup kicker, excuse me.
Yeah, so I used to kick here, isn't it?
Matthew Wright. Matthew Wright,
yeah.
Who sealed the deal on Urban Meyer's first victory in his short-term NFL coaching career once upon a time in London over the Miami Dolphins back in 2021. He will kick for Houston on Sunday. So backup quarterback in, backup kicker in as well. Meanwhile, for your Jacksonville Jaguars, while the official injury report has not come out, it's almost 5:00 Eastern on Wednesday afternoon. Should be noted that during the open viewing portion of practice, the players that were not seen: Ezra Cleveland, the starting left guard; Jordan Lewis, starting nickel corner and outside corner and base downs; Brian Thomas Jr., and Hunter Long, who, without Brenton Strange, who is still on IR, becomes the de facto flex tight end for the Jaguars in the receiving game. All four of those individuals were in the locker room after practice, which for a player who is not going to be available on Sunday, that doesn't usually happen. So that at least gives me, T-Wig and Marcus, it gives me at least a little bit of hope that we could see all four of those players on Sunday. But if all four, let's say, cannot go, which of those four, Marcus, concerns you the most? Jordan Lewis, Ezra Cleveland, Brian Thomas Jr., Hunter Long. If they cannot go on Sunday, which one bodes disaster for Jacksonville?
I mean, Brian Thomas Jr., because you're already having some problems at wide receiver. Love having Meyers, but again, he is new to the system. How's he going to adjust? How's he going to fit into how, what Liam Coen wants to run and going to do? So again, if you don't have a very good wide receiver that is a good veteran in your system, it hurts. But also, not gonna lie, Cleveland using him, that also could hurt, because when you lose a starting offensive lineman, when you run the football well, that continuity can kind of get skewed. So between Thomas and Cleveland, it's kind of negative. I'm going to lean towards Thomas because they need to have that veteran leadership at the wide receiver position right now.
T-Wig, who for you is the biggest concern if they don't go on Sunday?
Jordan Lewis for me, and the reason why is because of Nico Collins. And I don't want you think about the lineup without Jordan Lewis, and you're looking at a bunch of guys, and you're thinking about Nico, and you're like, oh man, and the offensive line is struggling in Houston. They're going to do a lot of three-step drops. That ball is coming out. Nico's 6'5". You're talking about slant. I mean, I can see it coming now, and that's the part that scares me a little bit. And I really do like the way that Jordan plays, because remember, Eric Murray's been banged up also. And when you don't have that veteran presence in that secondary, now you're looking at Jarian Jones and Monteric, you're saying, okay, now y'all got to grow up real quick. And I don't want to see Nico Collins on the other side when you're depending on guys to grow up and play better than they've ever played. Even though Buster Brown has really, really played well this year, that's a big ask. Nico Collins is an all-pro level wide receiver. And when you're thinking about a lot of three-step drops or maybe boots to maybe move the quarterback because they have offensive line problems also, I think it's good to have a guy with a navigation system like Jordan Lewis that can keep everything in line and keep everyone measured. So I hope he's on the field.
Vincent in the chat brings up a good point. He says it has to be Devin Lloyd for him. He seems to be a major catalyst for the takeaways that the defense generates, especially when playing a backup quarterback. Devin Lloyd, at least during the open viewing portion of practice today, Vincent, was on the field. He also was last week. He traveled to Las Vegas and then ultimately, after being listed as questionable going into the game, was held out with that calf strain. And so I am interested as well. T-Wig, you're nodding along. Do you think we see Devin Lloyd this weekend, or especially, and we've talked about this a lot in the Jaguars locker room the last few weeks, in light of what we saw in the NBA playoffs this past summer, do you risk that calf strain knowing it could lead to even more if tweaked the wrong way?
Yeah, I think they need to err on the side of caution. And the reason why I say that is because even though he was Defensive Player of the Month and he was headed for an all-pro season, I know everyone wants to get that back. But without it, Ventrell Miller has been decent, right? And you still have Foy. You're not missing leadership. You're not missing playmaking from the second level. What we've been missing is real good safety play and the nickel position when Jordan Lewis went out. I think you don't want those things to pile up. Everyone is saying, okay, we need to go get somebody else at safety. Safety is another position, not just wide receiver, offensive line, or defensive tackle. A lot of people have been talking about they should have went out and gotten a safety too. So the thing is the leadership on the back end, you can give up a lot of big plays if it's not there. You're not going to get killed if your will linebacker or your off-ball linebacker, if there's a little bit of drop-off and the next guy is pretty good. There's a huge drop-off, though, between Jordan Lewis and Antonio Johnson, and that's problematic for me.
Marcus, if Devin Lloyd can't go, where do you think, outside of the obvious culprits in Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker, where does the pass rush have to come from?
It's have to come from Armstead. I mean, it's going to have to come from Armstead. He's going to have to really get on that, that edge of the guard or inside the tackle and have to make some plays. He's going to have to use his hands more, get more active. Again, the Texans offensive line is not very good. This is an absolute phenomenal time for a breakout game when they need you the most. So Armstead has to come in there, do what he does as a veteran, step up, bring his A game and help them win and help them get some pass rush to take pressure off of the secondary and also pressure off the offense.
And it should be noted, as of now, Marcus, he's the team leader in sacks, one Eric Armstead. I don't know what that says about the rest of the operation. Certainly says that Trayvon Walker missed 1 game and realistically 3 when you consider that he played with the club hand in 2 of the most recent 3 games that the Jaguars have played, and then was ejected in the 3rd quarter of the 3rd. So I think that kind of says it all. And that's why, again, earlier in the program, which if you missed any of today's live stream show, be sure to go back, listen on demand, either here on the Locked On Jaguars YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. It certainly speaks to why I thought the Jaguars would go out and address defensive line in some capacity, whether that's on the edge or in the interior, because T-Wig, Calais Campbell, I don't know, old friend alert, if you had brought him back to town, he would have also been even greater sack number so far this season through 9 weeks than Eric Armstead. And so that's where I think it's going to be very interesting, knowing that this Texans line, to your point, Marcus, is mediocre at best, the offensive line. The defensive line, though, Marcus, a little bit different. The Jaguars offensive line was able to hold largely Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson to a subpar day during their week 3 meeting. How do you stop those two, though, at home at NRG Stadium on Sunday?
What you have to do is you have to do exactly what the Texans are going to do. Some quick passes, get into some quick rhythm. Don't do a lot of 5-step drop, a lot of 7-step drop. Get Trevor Lawrence, who's got great speed on the outside, move the pocket. Don't make him there a sitting duck. He's got size. He's got speed. He's been assistant for a long time. He's a great thrower on the run. Again, you got to get him out and you got to keep the pocket moving and get him into that next space level of outside the pocket. And again, those 3-step drops, maybe 5, but stay away from 7. And please do not have the ball more than 3 seconds, because again, that's going to make it really hard on your offensive tackles.
Wigg, one thing I want to kind of close with, and I asked Liam Coen about this today, and I asked Trevor Lawrence and some players in the locker room about it as well. To you, as much as the Jaguars moved the ball up and down the field throughout the course of that game against the Raiders on Sunday, did it feel like the 4th quarter and overtime when they maybe had to simplify the offense because they had the likes of Austin Trammell and Tim Jones, who just returned to Jacksonville 3 weeks ago after a brief little foray up to Minnesota? That's who their wide receivers were. Did it feel like the offensive operation flowed better? And so perhaps, to Marcus's point, you not only get Trevor on a rollout on the run, getting the ball out quick, but you kind of go, I don't want to say vanilla. How would you describe maybe what we saw and maybe how the Jaguars can build upon what we saw in the late goings of that victory?
So it's about what they want to do and what they want to be. And the reality, because of injury set in, okay, we can't do that right now. And you never want to concede. You can't do it when everyone is healthy, right? You're always pressing for it. You've been working on it. And now it has to manifest itself in the game. And if it doesn't, and sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does, and then they don't get points and they've missed field goals or they've gotten those dreaded penalties. All right, so if we simplify everything, you know what that tells me? We're just better than them. We're just going to keep it simple, get out of here and get on this plane with a win. So my thing this week is to do a little bit of both. Yeah, you got to be bold in your play calling and trust that the things that you've been working on and trying to get them to do, because you know eventually you're going to have to do those things anyway if you want to get to where you want to go. But the thing is for me, I think the way you beat them in their pass rush, run the ball and keep things simple so you don't get behind the sticks. Look, holding penalties will happen. A legal procedure every now and then will happen. But you shouldn't, if you're a wide receiver, leave before the ball is snapped because you're looking at it. You shouldn't be lining up where you shouldn't be lining up and not covering and making errors like that. Those things, those errors, if you get behind the sticks, 1st and 15, 1st and 20, 2nd and 18, you know what happens? Yeah, Williams and Hunter, they pin their ears back, or you can do the obligatory handoff and get 5 yards, and then you'll end up being, in 3rd and long and having to punt. I think staying ahead of the sticks, one of the ways you guarantee that, run the ball. I wouldn't care if they ran it on 1st and 2nd down and keep ending up in 3rd and 4. Good. That's a 3-step drop, 1st down. Run the football. You ain't complete no 3-step drop passes on 3rd and 11. That's just usually not going to happen.
Let's call that T-Wig's X Factor. It is time now for predictions. T-Wig, you want to kick us off. Do you have the Jaguars or the Texans on Sunday in Houston?
The Jags, 23-21. They're going to hit another walk-off field goal to win it. This gritty Jacksonville, gritty Trevor, South Florida Trevor. They're going to pull it off, and these close games are just going to become their identity. I do think Houston's going to be cranked up and fired up, but as long as the Jags come back 6-3, I don't care what they do.
Marcus, how about you?
Yeah, I got Jags. I'm going to go 28-17. I think they're going to they're going to really control the clock. They're going to have good passing. They're going to roll out. They're going to have the tackle set the width of the pocket, have the guards and centers set the depth of the pocket. And again, I'm expecting them to have a big game and get after that quarterback and go after a subpar offensive line.
In the words of Scott Van Pelt, I'm going to save the graphic and just pick the Texans. Just for the sake of trying to be a biased but an unbiased podcast. I'm with you, though, T-Wig. I think if you're looking to take a prop bet on FanDuel right now, who is our title sponsor for today's episode, I might go the under because I do think this is going to be a low-scoring affair. I've got Texans 18-16, weird scoregami. But, hey, listen. I think that the Jaguars bounce back, though, the following week against the Los Angeles Chargers, their lone home game in the month of November. How do you like that one, Duval? Don't worry. I've still got your back. Rest assured. Well, this was fun, gentlemen. Our first squad show here on the Locked On Jaguars channel. Do you want to do it again sometime?
Yeah, I think I ain't got nothing to do. Y'all can call me. I ain't cutting no hair. You know what I'm saying?
I'll be there.
All right. How does Sunday sound after that game on Sunday?
Sounds good to me.
We'll figure it out.
All right, we'll figure that one out. And if not Sunday, we'll be back on Monday. And we most definitely will be back next Wednesday in your feed, 4:00 live on the Locked On Jaguars YouTube channel. And of course, wherever you get the Locked On Podcast Network. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us here for this first ever episode of the Jaguars Squad Show. We will catch you later this weekend.